Today, we're going to talk about the 5 worst errors you can make in your next powerlifting competition. Especially if this is the first competition you've done, you probably want to listen up, because in this video, we're going to break down the top 5 worst errors you can make in a powerlifting competition and things you should think about and how to improve your efforts. Make sure you stick around so you can hear the top error that you can make in a powerlifting competition. So we'll start off with number 5, trying to squeeze into a weight class. I work with a lot of clients in powerlifting, strongman, just in strength in general. And when it comes to the powerlifting competitors, they're always talking about what can they do to improve their outcome, whether it's dropping the weight class, different techniques they want to use. A lot of times we revert back to this whole weight class issue. So I'll have competitors who will lift, do very well, and then they'll tell me, hey, I think I'll do better and I'll rank better if I'm in a lighter weight class. Now, sometimes it's realistic. They might be 5 or 6 pounds away, but other times it might be 10, 15, or 20 pounds, and they want to figure out what could they do to get into the lower weight class. I'm almost tempted to say, hey, lift above your weight class and maximize your mass and your ability. But let's get back to the whole conversation in general. When we compete in powerlifting, people will say it's you versus you, fighting for first place. There's a lot of different theories, but ultimately for me and the people I train, I want them to get better. I want them to PR. I want them to increase their ability. And I think this hyper focus on a weight class kind of needs to be a conversation that happens later in your lifting career. Maybe when you're at the national level or in a bigger competition where you could be fighting for money, for other merits. Maybe the weight class could be an issue or a topic of discussion, but for the most part, I would tell my earlier lifters, just be at your body weight. Just lift with that, get comfortable, and then once you have a grasp on your ability, you can start playing with some other concepts. So now, the number 4 error I see a lot of people do in powerlifting is they're not planning their attempts in advance. One of the most intimidating things is in powerlifting, you perform your lift, whether it's the opener, the second, or the third and final lift. And when you're done, you gotta walk to the table and tell the workers what your next weight gonna be. And me as a coach, I've been in meets with my clients, or I've competed as well. You get to that table and it's very overwhelming, because at that point, when you're looking at a chart of numbers, especially in kilos as well, it's overwhelming, because in the gym, you were training for 350, but you just did 335 or 340 and you're like, oh, I could probably do a little bit more. Sometimes with the excitement or this discouragement, we kind of lose track of our ability and we kind of make a hasty response, or not a hasty response, but kind of a quick decision on our feet because you have a short amount of time to declare a weight. So I definitely think you should plan your opener, your second, and your third lift. It doesn't have to be exact, it could be ranges too, but just plan ahead so that you're accountable for all these other issues. Now comes my number 3 error that most people make in powerlifting competitions, and it's not tapering your training to recover. So here's what I'm talking about. You're training hard, especially if you follow like a linear progression. You're increasing the intensity while you're decreasing the volume. The problem that happens is that when we get closer to meet day, we want to do more dress rehearsal, practice more attempts, etc. But we need to decrease our accessory volume, our secondary movement volume. We want to just focus on rehearsing the heavy weights, doing a couple other movements to improve our outcome and our performance, but we want to really drop the volume in general. So if I was working with someone and we were doing 6 exercises, a training session, maybe at the end we're only doing 3 or 4. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that and your total volume. What if in one session you're doing 300 reps and then before competition you barely dropped it and you're still doing 250 reps or 200? You got to account for that. You got to account for your body's ability to recover. They usually say once you're above 90%, it takes 48 to 72 hours to recover from max effort ability. So that's another issue as well. Now, still while we're on that topic, let's talk about the number 2 error, and that's rehearsing singles. So you're closer to competition day, you're about a month out. This is where you want to do singles, not just for max effort, but for sub-maximal weights as well. So squat and bench, you get a downward and upward phase, but with deadlift, you only get the upward phase. But if you do a lot of consecutive reps on deadlift, you're getting the benefit of bringing your body up and down, a benefit you wouldn't have in competition. So it's really important that we rehearse singles, whether it's heavy weights or sub-maximal weights, just to practice that first rep strength, your technique, your positioning, your setup, and all of those things included. That brings us to our number one issue. You guys have been waiting the whole video for it. I really appreciate it. And I really think that this is probably one of the most overlooked parts of powerlifting. The number one error that people make in powerlifting competitions is not understanding the rules. So here's my thing. Obviously, when you train for powerlifting, I'm assuming you're going to compete, and you would think people would know the rules of powerlifting competitions. But some don't know the rules of bumping weight. They don't know the rules of the time on the clock. They don't know the rules on squat depth or the commands of the lifts. They don't know a lot of that stuff. So you could be a really strong individual and think you know, but then when competition comes and you miss a command, like a rack command, and you squat the weight and rack it beforehand, before the judge tells you to rack it, you could be one of the strongest people there. But if you're not following the commands, the rules, not understanding how the meet goes, you might not be able to showcase your strength tremendously. So hopefully, with all this being said, you have learned a few things in this video about powerlifting competitions. You've learned the 5 top errors that people make, whether it's not rehearsing singles or trying to squeeze into a weight class or trying to assume you know the rules. So hopefully, with all that being said, you feel more equipped for your next meet, you're successful your first meet, and maybe you learned something new in this video. So hopefully, if you can, click the subscribe button, like the video, even leave a comment. Tell us something that we missed. Is there something else that people need to know? And let's thrive off the comment section. Let's really get into good conversation about powerlifting competitions, the do's, the don'ts, and how we can become better as a community. So again, my name is Locero. I hope you liked the video, and check us out at PowerliftingTechnique.com.